Are questions more important than answers? If so, then maybe in my role here as ethical culture leader, I shouldn't come dispensing answers to life's meaningful questions, but I should just ask questions? Is that what I should do? I wonder whether an entire morning talk could be nothing but questions. What do you think? Can it be done? Would it be any good? Do I mean those questions as rhetorical questions? Or am I just seeking information? Or am I trying to make a point? Would such a presentation be profound or just a cheap stunt? Is it already getting a little old? Are you worried now? Do you think I'm going to spring on my unsuspecting victims an entire morning of an idea that's better in theory than in practice? Isn't this a time and place, 11 a.m., Sunday mornings, when speakers offer their wisdom? And isn't my approach subverting that? Aren't questions supposed to be subversive? Do you think this is what Dr. K anticipated I would do when I told him I was following up on his suggestion to do a talk on questions? If you knew you were about to sit through 30 minutes of questions, would you leave? Is there something annoying about questions? Asked in this manner one after another, do they bore you? Are they grating? Are they irritating? Or are you just annoyed at me? Do you want me to stop? What if I told you it was in my nature, or it was my calling to ask questions? Would that make it easier? Would you tell me to shut up? Maybe you'd call on authorities. Would you call on Betsy, our education chair, or Bob, our president, to get me to stop? Would you offer me hemlock tea that would put an end to my subversive habit? Isn't that what they did to Socrates? The existential examiner, the quintessential questioner, the exemplary epitome of inquiry. Okay, I'll stop. I don't want to end up like Socrates. I asked 30 questions. Did it seem longer than that? That's 31 now, I just added. Questions can alter our routine. They force us to distinguish between the frivolous and the fundamental, and societies depend on them to help them evolve. But the elites of Athens sent Socrates for asking too many questions. So I'm going to tell you briefly the story of Socrates, as told by his prodigy Plato. Socrates was the most public of Greek philosophical thinkers, best known for asking questions. He was born in 470 before the Common Era and grew up during a time that was known as the Golden Age of Athens, where there was great art and drama and literature and advancing science and medicine, accumulating material prosperity, and some people say it was the birth of Western democracy. The leader, Pericles, skillfully navigated a balance between those who wanted full democracy, the commoners, as long as you weren't a slave or a woman, you got to vote. Oh, little exceptions. Balancing that against the aristocrats that wanted to keep their wealth and protect their power. When Athens was proud and powerful, they totally put up with Socrates, this aging man wandering the streets of Athens with a shabby robe and sandals, questioning, wrestling, asking philosophical questions. And he didn't aspire to political office. He didn't seek great wealth. And he had many loyal followers, but he also antagonized a lot of people because he asked too many questions. He tried to justify it. He said, I am just a questioning gadfly, quote, constantly alighting upon you at every point to rouse, persuade, and reproach you each all day long. He questioned, he prompted, he annoyed. And he taught the kids of Athens to do the same, by the way. Some of the parents did not like the fact that their kids were getting a little more rebellious and inquisitive under Socrates' sway. And this old man of Athens also annoyed a group of intellectuals known as the Sophists, who taught the wealthy children of Athens and felt like Socrates was luring away their business because he did it for free. Athens' dictatorial autocratic neighbor, Sparta, ended the golden age of Athens. And after years of war, when Sparta defeated Athens, Athens went through revolution and counter-revolution, convulsion. And the tolerance for questions ended. Because when a society is feeling pressured, people who ask questions seem like a greater threat. Sound familiar? Athens was too fragile for meddlesome questions. I don't know if our country is getting that fragile. He was charged with corrupting the youth of Athens and heresy. In what was perhaps the most famous of all trials, he didn't beg for forgiveness. Instead, he tried to convince the rest of the assembly that he was an important aspect of Athenian culture. And he talked about the story of the Oracle of Delphi, who was a great and respected source of divine wisdom in Athens at the time. And the oracle told Socrates, according to Socrates, that Socrates, you are the wisest man of all. And Socrates was confused, and so he said at his trial, when I heard the riddle the oracle gave me, I began to reflect. What can God mean by this riddle? I know very well that I am not wise, even to the smallest degree. Then what can he mean by saying that I am the wisest of men? Socrates went around and asked many other Athenians about what wisdom was to try to figure this out. So he asked the artisans and the poets and the politicians, and they all thought they knew wisdom. But in questioning him, he discovered they did not. He explained to the jury, from this examination, Athenians, much fierce and bitter indignation, and from this a great many prejudices about me. And people say that I am a wise man. I believe that the God is really wise, and that this oracle is telling me that human wisdom is worth little or nothing. I do not think he meant that Socrates was wise. He only made use of my name and took me as an example, as though he would to say to men, he among you is the wisest who, like Socrates, knows that in truth his wisdom is worth nothing at all. Therefore, I go about testing, examining every man who I think is wise. Socrates defended questioning as the best way to learn and the best way to acknowledge one's own ignorance. He said assumptions have to be challenged and questions are more important than answers. Centuries later, Voltaire said, judge a man not by his answers but by his questions. The jury, however, judged Socrates guilty. He could have escaped. The vote was close. People didn't really want to kill him. But he didn't want to trade his integrity for a few more years of life. Because he believed that the unexamined life was not worth living, he decided to drink the hemlock rather than curb his examination. Now, people draw a lot of different morals from the stories of Socrates. Knowledge is limited. There's always something more to learn beyond the mystery. Questions lead to wonder. And governments are afraid of questions. Because questions can be revolutionary. We know this. And only revolutionaries really threaten power. They also often pay for their questions with their lives. Now, most of us in this room are not revolutionaries. We would not pay for our lives by asking questions that are unpopular. Most people, in fact, really prefer conventional truths about reality. School and society certainly reward us more for answers that are acceptable than for thoughtful questions, right? Teachers who emphasize right answers often are only teaching students to copy, to imitate. Now, imitation and copying has a role in education, But questioning gadflies are often seen as pests in the system that have to be smacked. But that stops creativity sometimes, and it limits the creation of genius, like on Einstein. A lot of you know Einstein's famous phrase, imagination is more important than knowledge. And what I think he meant by that was that true knowledge, without imagination, remains static, fixed, a set of rules, a set of assumptions, standard facts. Imagination, though, is not about what is, but what could be. It encourages mental play and creativity, and imagination is the foundation for new knowledge, and it brings knowledge into great being. Asking questions is more important than knowing the answers. Now, some philosophical questions, what's real, what's knowledge, what's truth, what's good, don't really seem to have a pragmatic purpose. Can you really give a concrete answer to those? They seem unanswerable. But that's precisely the point. One of my favorite philosophers, Bertrand Russell, wrote about this. He talked about the fact that questions often are philosophical, like, is there a purpose in the universe, or is everything just random? Is good and evil a creation of human beings, or is it part of the universe? Is consciousness permanent in the universe, or is it just a transitory accident in this little spot? Russell says, whether answers to these questions are discoverable or not, the answers suggested by philosophers are not demonstrably true. Yet, however slight might be the hope of discovering an answer, it's part of the business of philosophy to keep alive that speculative interest in the universe, which is apt to be killed by confining ourselves to definitely ascertainable knowledge. He continues, the value of philosophy, in fact, is to be sought largely in its uncertainty. Philosophy, though unable to tell us with certainty many of the answers to the doubts it raises, is able to suggest possibilities which enlarge our thoughts and free them from the tyranny of custom. While diminishing our feelings of certainty as to what things are, they increase our knowledge as to what they can be. And they remove the arrogant dogmatism of those who have never traveled into the regions of liberating doubt. It keeps alive our sense of wonder. Liberating doubt, wonder, that's the gift that questions give to us. Without questions, our lives would become pretty predictable, pretty standard, pretty dull and routine. I know I'll never be able to answer many philosophical questions, but even the idea that I can never answer the questions sets my little puny questions into the context of eternity. I'll never be able to answer them. And to a degree that opens me to the idea of eternity. It's as close as I'm ever going to get to it. What great questions do you like to ask? I want you to think for a moment. I'm going to pause for a moment. I want you to think, what are one or two questions that really intrigue you? Big or small, concrete or abstract? Just think for a moment. I want you to put a little check mark next to that. And after our program today, in the lobby or up at coffee hour, I want you to go up to somebody you don't know well and share that question. Or ask them theirs. We're going to do talk back during coffee hour, by the way, because we have a meeting afterwards. I want to invite people to attend. So make sure you have fun with us at your tables. I was trying to figure out a little bit about sort of the brain science of questions, and I found one Canadian biologist and futurist who talked about philosophical questions that we'll never solve. He offered these. Why is there something rather than nothing? Do we have free will? What's the best moral system? Is there life after death? Does God exist? Now, do these intrigue you? Or is the fact that there's this bottomless pit that you fall into when you ask these questions, does that make these questions seem silly and not really motivated by a desire to know anything? I bet we have a very different reactions in this room to those questions. What makes a good question? I thought maybe good questions are genuine questions. And genuine questions, what I mean by that, are questions that come from somebody who really wants to know something, who really wants to expand their understanding. Maybe that's a good question. I like philosophical questions because I don't think I'm going to get an answer. Sometimes those are called open questions. Open questions aren't questions that you can answer with a yes or a no or one or two words easily. They're questions that open you up, perhaps to other ideas, other cultures, other people. I was given a book called The Book of Questions. Gregory Stock. It's full of questions designed to open up conversation. 2.5 million copies have been sold, 18 languages. It's sort of a parlor game that livens up any gathering. You ask these philosophical questions, and he gave a couple of these. Try one out at your next cocktail party. Do you think the world will be better off or worse off 100 years from now? How so? If you knew that in a year you would die of a heart attack, how would it alter your life? Because there's no real answers to those, Stock says that they allow for social play. They lead to more play than I found in the 101 Greatest Questions of All Time, which was published by the British Daily Telegraph. Some of them were quirky. Here's a couple that were quirky. Does chewing gum really stay inside you for years? What's the coldest place in the universe? Did the Big Bang really make a bang? Now, they're a little intriguing, but because there are experts that say they have the answers to those, which I'll give you afterwards if you're interested, I don't find them leading to great conversations. Stock's questions, on the other hand, I think do. Some of them offer very tough choices. These choices could reveal a lot about who we are as a person. Here's a particularly intriguing, but I warn you, a disturbing question. Would you rather lose the use of all motorized vehicles, all telecommunication devices, and all computers forever, or one of your hands? Here's the second one. If you had to be obsessed with money, sex, sports, religion, or food, which one would you choose? I love some people go, well, that's obvious. What would be worse? To be naked in public, to get spit on by strangers, to be arrested for shoplifting, to throw up on someone at dinner, or to beg in the street? Are these good questions? Are they no? We have an answer. We have no. Move on. They're meant to try to reveal something about who you are, to prompt and probe us, to be candid, or to blurt out answers that we think will show us something about ourselves. There was something popular in Victorian England circles called the Proust questionnaire. Now, Proust, the writer, as a teenager, found this document that had all these questions, and he filled them out, and it was found, and people got really interested. So they would have these events, these things where people would record their answers to the questionnaire, because of the idea of learning about yourself by looking at your answers to these questions. There are a lot of tools that we have in our society today, too, like Myers-Briggs. How many have taken the Myers-Briggs test? Yeah, a lot of people. They aren't scientifically verified. They're tools. You have to be question them as well. But I found Myers-Briggs very useful to understand me and my family, not because they were exact, but because they opened conversation. I understand that I'm a slight extrovert with strong intuition and some feeling and judging tendencies, and that helps me navigate life more carefully. I'll have to talk about Myers-Briggs a whole other time. Some people prefer an alternative to it called Enneagrams. Does anybody know that? Enneagrams? Is that how it's pronounced? Okay. It was traced all the way back to some 4th century mystic in Alexandria. And one popular brand of them, produced by Renee Brown and Elizabeth Weigel, asks 144 questions to reveal your dominant personality type. And in their version, one of the personality types is the questioner. And questioners are particularly good because they're asking questions because they're direct, they're unconventional, they find new ways of doing things. Now, Myers-Briggs or Enneagrams are often used by people in business, human relations managers. That's where they get a little dangerous because you can make or break getting a job depending on how you fill out those questionnaires. But Weigel suggests that if you have a business and you want to be more self-critical, you want to have more self-correcting elements within your own business, hire a questioner, is what they say. Because questioners can ask the questions that none of your other employees are going to ask. Weigel says, if you're an employer looking for someone to sniff out legal liabilities, or defects in design, or bugs in software, or disorders in personalities, you'll do well to find a person with a questioner personality to hire. Weigel then goes on to offer a list of great questioners in society. These are the ones that she offers. Sigmund Freud, Woody Allen, Spike Lee, Don Rickles, Ellen DeGeneres, Louis Black, Aaron Brockovich, David Letterman. Now, it's not so odd to find there are a lot of comedians and a couple of interviewers and some investigators on this. They're all good at asking questions. That makes sense. And good questions help reveal things. I mean, anybody who's a good therapist should be able to ask the questions that draw out wisdom from yourself. Interviewers, how you ask a good question. Anybody watched Inside the Actor's Studio? It's an interesting show with a quirky James Lipton who asks occasionally very odd questions. He's got a very strange style. Supposedly, he used the Proust questionnaire to come up with his style. And he's been on the air for a while. Is he still on? No, he's not on anymore. He's on a long time. He must interview 400, 500 people. So there may be ways that good questions can be improved. It's interesting how comedy and questions are linked. There was an NPR story back in 2005 by Manavi Singh that explored how humor and questioning are linked through brain chemistry and the characteristic of curiosity. A study in the journal Neuron suggested that brain chemistry changes when we're curious, helping us learn, retain information, and be witty. There's something in the hippocampus, an area in your brain that lights up when you're given candy or money or curious. There's something about a reward function to being curious that also creates a sense of levity and quirkiness. I think curiosity is the vitamin A of learning, if you will, and questions do nurture curiosity. But it can kill a cat, right? It killed Socrates. At least we know that much. So, are there bad questions? My hero, Carl Sagan, said, there are naive questions, tedious questions, ill-phrased questions, questions put after inadequate self-criticism. But every question is a cry to understand the world. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Right. I've heard some dumb questions in my life. Usually, They're questions that aren't really trying to get information. They're used perhaps as a weapon. I mean, how many have heard a version of this? Are you going out dressed like that? That's not really seeking information. That's a judgment, and it's not a good one. So I think there are bad questions. Some are motivated by the desire to stimulate daydreams. Some of them stimulate embarrassing daydreams. Here's one from the Book of Questions. It's a little embarrassing. If a stranger came up to you and offered you $30,000 to have sex, and you knew there'd be no danger, and you'd get the money, would you accept? Get a little squirrely when you think of that. Because then the kicker questions are, if you would accept, how low could their amount be for you to do it? And for those of you who think you're safe, if you said no, how high would it be for you to do it? I don't know if that's a good question to explore. I mean, I grew up in New England. I'm a little stodgy. Maybe I just feel like those are questions that reveal more than I care to reveal. Maybe they're just unnecessary or silly when there are a lot of important questions to ask. Some important questions are wrapped up in sort of making a really difficult choice put before you. If you remember way back to the film Sophie's Choice, one of the most horrific choices having to be made was of a mother being really tortured by a Nazi officer, forcing her to choose between her son and her daughter, and then having to send one to death and save the other. That's not really a question that I would consider a good question. Which do you want to save? So I'm going to ask another question from the Book of Questions that I wonder whether it's a good question or not, or whether it just pulls me into a dark space that I don't want to be in. This one I literally felt repulsed by when I read it. Would you be willing to murder a child if it would end hunger in the world? Now it's easy to say, oh, that could never happen, and dismiss it, but Stock says, don't do that. Try to answer them as if it's really possible. And then I felt even more repulsed when he asked the follow-up question. What if the child was yours? Maybe these emotionally laden imaginary choices are useful to draw out our values and our sensibilities. But I worry that they darken and they cloud our mind and our hearts. The world is so full of trauma. Why add secondary imaginary trauma to it? It's like trying to convince yourself to have more nightmares. Do they bring out your best? Or do they bring out your worst? I'm going to end by talking a little about ethical culture. I got a call yesterday from Scotty Bloom, many of you know him, who couldn't be here. He said, I got the best question. And he's right. And I'd already written this thing, so oh well. He said the best question for ethical culture, which we sometimes call a religion of relationships, is, how are you? How are you? It's an open question. If asked sincerely, it opens up the potential for a relationship. It's simple. It's harmless. Even people who don't want to answer it don't feel like they have to. Fine. On your way. Maybe that is the best ethical culture question. My commitment to ethical culture is to try to bring out the best in people. So I try to use questions in a respectful way that respects the integrity of the person. I try not to embarrass them or ask questions that are too difficult or in the wrong context or in front of the wrong group. I don't try to bully or embarrass with questions. I try. Don't always succeed. Beyond that personal relationship with others in questions is questioning socially. Ethical culture is committed to building social justice. And part of building social justice is asking questions to power, forcing them to answer things that they may not want to answer. Fundamental to justice work is uncovering facts hidden by spin or distortion. And we've talked a lot here recently about, at this point in our country, truth is being violated by the highest powers in government. And the constructive contributions of immigrants are being overlooked by myths about the dangers they pose. The horrors of our racist classist prison industrial complex are being masked by incomplete and distorted studies about the reasons for crime. Statistics alerting us to climate change are being hidden and destroyed. You know, EPA sent batches of information to Canada before the transition so the new president would not be able to bury the information? That's stunning. As skeptics and as humanists, we have to challenge false authority and unquestioned assumptions. We have to encourage more public questioning than we have ever questioned. We have to confront deception and tyranny with hard questions, not just of our leaders, but of ourselves. Are we willing to ask these questions? Are we willing to be a gadfly? Are we willing to put our life on the line and ask questions, as did Socrates? Thank you.